Welcome to the Osmo Early Bird Podcast. I'm your old pal Emac coming to you in Dan Strafford's time slot. Yes, he covered for me on vacation, so I am joined by the fella, Lofty D, as we get you ready for Wednesday's foundational podcast here, courtesy of Osmo.com. Lofty, first question I've got for you, not how the hell are you, but how proud are you of all these Sixers floating around and becoming relevant for other teams? We have Nerlens Noel on Tuesday, Rashawn Holmes, Drew Holiday, Jahlil Okafor. We've had Jarris Bayless sightings recently. The process, it worked, right?
It's kind of crazy. Now we just need a Timothy Duawu-Cabarrot sighting in OKC. Yeah, Rashawn Holmes. Holmes is always a decent energy guy, whatever. 15-minute per game bench guy. Nerlens Noel has utility, but he's a backup. We all know that. And remember, he's popping up. He's relevant for a night because Steven Adams is hurt. Jahlil Okafor is relevant for now. And to be fair, Okafor is actually playing pretty well with the opportunity he's been given. But let's please not forget that those two were top 3 draft picks. And it's not to say, the Sixers were stupid. They weren't Anthony Bennett picks. I mean, these guys were both projected to go in the top 3. Jahlil Okafor was supposed to be the number 1 overall pick up until Karl Anthony Towns took him over, a month or so before the draft. They're there, but I mean, they are just basically, they have some utility, but not a ton. And I don't think they'll ever be, rock solid starters ever again. And that's not really a stretch to say.
No, and that one of the crazy things, and then we'll get into the litany of injuries we have here, but the games. I know you and Adam and Eddie have various takes on blowouts and projecting blowouts and how you address them, how you handle them. So we use a lot of words. We don't ignore them, but we don't let them dictate a lot of our information. Sometimes it'll come out in the minutes if we think, here's where we see the rotation going, et cetera. Then that is the basis for the projections, which then in turn takes care of ownership, et cetera. So it's a long way of saying is a lot of it's accounted for, but you don't know what's going to happen. The Wizards went in and beat the snot out of Oklahoma City Thunder. On Monday night, Atlanta took the Clippers to task. Tonight, you've got the New Orleans Pelicans with only Drew Holiday as the last remaining starter of their, quote, current starting 5. Solomon Hill, Miller, Okafor,
Frank Jackson.
And they are in Houston beating the Rockets right now, midway through the fourth quarter, but they're up by 8.
Yeah, and they were double-digit dogs. This again, but really, this is why you spend all this time projecting blowouts. It doesn't do you any favors. I'm sure you could send me, an Excel spreadsheet of blowouts that were projected to be blowouts and blew out, of course. But I could also could literally send you a sheet the same size of games that were projected to be blowouts and weren't, and games that were projected to be close and were blowouts, and better yet, games that were projected to be blowouts and the point spread ended, at around that, but it wasn't until late in the fourth quarter that they pulled away with it, like we see the Warriors do so often. There's just really it's an exercise in futility because there's really no way that any of us are going to get it right more times than not. So what I'm going to do is assume that, hey, these guys are going to play the regular minutes. And oftentimes, even if it is a blowout, unless it's a monster blowout, they still get 30, 32 minutes.
And then if you're the Wizards and the Cavs, Wizards went into Cleveland tonight. I believe they were 6-point favorites. They were down by
half at close.
Oh, was it? Okay. So down somewhat. They were down by 20 in the going into the fourth quarter. Their reserves brought them back, closed the game out. They only lost by 3. Their reserves outscored Cleveland 44-28 in the fourth quarter. So even when they keep it close, who knows which guys are going to be in there doing it.
You got that right. Like the worst thing you could do is project who's going to get the blowout run. It just, you have no idea. And even if they do, it's like what, they play an extra 4 minutes mop up duty. If that, you never know. You never know how it's going to go down. Chetty Osman had a monster game though. And then everyone will pile on him next time and he'll be terrible. Just watch. That's what he does.
Yeah. And I just found out Gary Payton II is playing for the Wizards. Somehow, as a Wizards fan, I was not aware he was on the roster. So.
Hard to be a Wizards fan right now.
Oh, it is. Well, I still root for Kelly Oubre, but now he's not on the team. So.
I know, and he's looked really good in Phoenix.
He is a garbage time specialist. So just keep that in mind. But getting on to our list of injuries here, we know that Emmanuel Mudiay is going to be out another 10 to 14 days with a shoulder issue. Frankie Ntilikina is out 1 to 2 weeks with a groin injury. Luke Cornett is out 2 to 3 weeks with an ankle injury. Kyrie Irving missed the last game, doubtful with the hip injury heading into this one. We'll have to wait and see. Chandler Hutchison was just announced he's going to be out 2 to 4 weeks with a foot issue. Tyler Johnson missed the last game. He is questionable with a calf. We have Dwayne Wade questionable with a knee. This game is in Miami. Derek Jones Jr. was just reported that he will not be reevaluated for at least 6 weeks, multiple bone bruises in one of his knees. Jamal Murray already listed out for Denver with an ankle issue. The guys on a back-to-back are New Orleans. So we have Elfrid Payton did not play on Monday. He was a late scratch with an ankle issue. Eton Moore probably won't play until after the trade deadline. They are trying to turn him into some picks. Julius Randle, still questionable with an ankle issue. He has not played in a few games. Mirotic is out for at least a week, maybe two. Anthony Davis, with this recent news that he wants to be traded, and he's dinged up with the little finger fracture of the phalanges. Whatever. I looked it up, didn't understand it, Lafayette. I did not take anything out of high school biology or anatomy.
I'm not the guy to answer that, I guess.
Yeah, but he wants to be traded. If he were to be hurt between now and the trade deadline, that would not be good for New Orleans. So it wouldn't shock me if we don't see him back until something potentially happens. And then the issue you've got with him is if New Orleans has him, doesn't move him, it's in their best interest to not win. Would they consider shutting him down? Good God, they have mishandled this whole thing. Finishing up the list, Garrett Temple out a week or two. He's dealing with a sore shoulder. Omri Caspi out with a knee issue. Jermichael Green has basically missed the last 2 games. He played a handful of minutes 2 games ago and then went out with a knee injury. He's still questionable. We know that Jeff Teague and Tyus Jones are both out. Derrick Rose is questionable but leaning towards doubtful. Tyreek Evans already been ruled out for a second game with a sore back. Let's see, Sam Decker and Jan Mahimni. This is a back-to-back for them. They both missed 2 games ago, but they played on Monday night. You'll have to see. That game was in Cleveland. They'll be coming back to Washington. And then Damian Lillard, probable with the knee issue. I expect him to play. He was more or less held out for rest in their game. Who was that against? Atlanta, I think. And then guys on a back-to-back. Chicago's on a road Monday. They're on, Tuesday. They're on the road Wednesday. New Orleans and Washington were on the road Tuesday. They will be at home Wednesday. And then Dallas and Indiana will be on the road Wednesday as well as Thursday. Good God, Lofty, we've got a lot of moving parts. I'm glad you're writing the deeper dive on Wednesday and not me.
Yeah. Well, you're not writing it any day, so you don't have to worry about that, do you?
Fella, I didn't fall off the turnip truck yesterday. So, all right, we're going to go position by position here. I have been yammering away, Lofty, so I'm going to turn it over to you. Let's hit out point guards up at the top here. Let's see. I've got it sorted by value, so let me get back to that. We've got Damian Lillard at 8,500 here on DraftKings. Luka Doncic, 8,800. Youngest player coming off a 35-point triple-double. He's only 19. De'Aaron Fox, the man ticking down. The price is not falling fast enough, but he has a great matchup against Atlanta. And then Drew Holiday, point guard or shooting guard. He's got the world on his shoulders, or at least the Pelicans. What do you like here amongst the top options at point guard?
Yeah, it's pretty deep. There's actually quite a bit to like here. And we don't expect Kyrie Irving to return either. So,
correct. He's doubtful. So.
Yeah, you probably mentioned that. You ran through a lot of names. It was tough to keep track of all that. For me,
19 on the list, Luffy. 19. It took up. Look, I've got it all on a legal pad here. It takes most of it up. So.
That's solid. That's solid work. I just wait for my one site to update around 10:30 when we usually do it, and then I just read them off the list that's been provided to me. So, pretty nice. So yeah, Irving's not expected to play, but the price on Rozier that's getting a bit hefty there. I mean, it's tough for me to get to. So I don't know if I will. 61 on DraftKings, 65 on FanDuel. It's not crazy. I mean, he's going to get minutes. He's going to play 35 minutes. He usually plays around that when Irving's out. I don't think it's crazy, but I'm also I'm not high on him either. I think we can do better. So we'll start from the top and work our way down here. Just pointing this out, I'm going to assume that the guys that are questionable right now are in, because that would be tough to do otherwise. And if I think they're not going to play, even though they're questionable, I'll be sure to bring that up as well. Damian Lillard's 8,500. That's a tough price to ignore. And he's not on the injury report, but is he going to put forth a solid game against Utah? Again, not an easy matchup, but you're getting him at a price that really is favorable here, and I don't mind 8,500 at all. Obviously the price point's built into the matchup there on DraftKings. We see that dynamic pricing quite a bit. I just don't know if he's a top play, and that's the thing. I don't know if you need to go there. Excuse me, even though he's at a discounted cost. You talked about De'Aaron Fox. You said his price tag isn't falling fast enough. That's because it's rising. And there's a lot. Once again, the dynamic pricing on FanDuel will do that to you, or DraftKings will do that to you. 78 on FanDuel. That's a little bit more palatable. The minutes they were dropping, and now it looks like they're back up. So, 32 against the Clippers. That game blew out late. Memphis was a 3-point game. He played 36 minutes. Then you have Brooklyn. They got torched. 29 minutes in the blowout, and then a 2-point game against Detroit, 35. So I'm going to assume that this game stays close. I think it will. Right now it's a 5.5-point spread, a 235 total, easily the highest on the slate. There's a lot to like here. Fox's performance has come down a bit, but this is the perfect spot to get back on track. I really do like him here. I don't mind Doncic. Do I pay more for him or the same as Drew Holiday? That's the thing. Probably not. Drew is on the second of a back-to-back, but what a great spot this is. Not because of the matchup. I actually think Denver plays good enough defense, and they aren't exactly an up-tempo team. But at the same time, Drew's going to get enough work to where I don't think it really matters. So, yeah, there's enough here at the top and in the mid-range that we can find plenty and avoid, playing Lillard against Utah if we don't want to. And in the same game as De'Aaron Fox, you also have Trae Young, who, 7,400. He's up a bunch from what we saw last game, but this game is a fantasy gold mine. I'm not totally opposed to playing him here. I prefer Fox, but I think Trae Young at 74 on DraftKings, 73 on FanDuel is still a perfectly reasonable play given what we should be expecting in this game between the Kings and Hawks.
Yeah, if we look since Christmas is what I've kind of been using as my line of demarcation here. We've got the Hawks with the fifth fastest pace, and then Sacramento's checking in at number 9. So that, of course, should be no surprise to any of us. Sacramento's been a little bit better on their defense, but they're still, let's see, what is that, like 9th? Oh, that's offensive rating. Let's see. They're 14th on defense, and then Atlanta, they're just
neither are good.
So high pace, good spot. We kind of saw a similar matchup here, and Atlanta did their job when they beat the Clippers on Monday night. So obviously no guarantee, but we've seen Atlanta mostly healthy. They play fast, they play loose, and they've been frisky. They've been keeping other teams' starters in the game because they haven't gone quietly into the night. So definite food for thought on that one. Looking down to some of the cheap guys, we all got burned by Trey Burke. Now that was going into it knowing that Trey Burke is Trey Burke, and he's on his 3rd or 4th team for a reason. But the price matchup and I mean everything was there. It's just he's not a great player. He's 4,800.
When he didn't get the minutes because Fizdale does what he always does. I don't think it was that big.
The guy from the G League, they called him up. That was his first game. I can't think of his name.
Kadeem Allen, yeah.
Yeah, Kadeem Allen. Adam and I were talking about him on the podcast yesterday.
Right. But, I mean, seriously, like, is it – I know he astronomically owned, but is it that much of a surprise? And this isn't to say that, you make a mistake by playing him. That's not what I'm saying. But people were, like, blown away that Mega Chalk Trey Burke wasn't good, but really we've seen what this guy has done, even in opportunities where he started before, and we've seen Fizdale just been so reluctant to give him consistent run unless he comes out of the gate with 10 points in the first 2 minutes. It's crazy.
Yeah, it's just been tough. But he's once again, not horrible. We do have 16 teams in the player pool, so we have some people to look for. But I I think my pivot to him is 200 more. Jared Bayless. I mean, we already know that Rose is out. We know that we know that Teague is out. Tyus Jones is out, and Rose is questionable, leaning towards doubtful. Bayless is, what is he, probably in his early 30s, but he is a competent NBA point guard and player. He has been playing a ton of minutes here, and he at least can facilitate. He plays within his game. He's a journeyman. He kind of knows what to do. I would prefer him over Trey Burke, in my opinion.
Yeah, I don't have an issue with that. I was laughed at for considering Bayless on the deeper dive the other day, but hey, this dude's posted 30-plus fantasy points in 4 straight games. And you know what? The greatest part about this is you're not saying, boy, I hope he can keep producing 1.25 fantasy points per minute. No, he's actually producing less than a fantasy point per minute. That's the beauty in it. You say, Laffy, what are you talking about? Why is it a good thing that he's producing less than a fantasy point per minute? Here's why. Because he's getting all of this production because he's playing so many minutes. Give me the minutes anytime over some rogue performances where you have 40 fantasy points in 16 minutes and then everyone piles on the next day and you can't hit a thing. You give me 37, 40 minutes from Bayless, he's going to stumble. He's going to fall into it, right? Face first into some peripherals, into some assists. And I had mentioned this the other day, but you wouldn't imagine the amount of assist opportunities he's been seeing. You think like, yeah, he's been lucky. You know, he's just kind of out there and he's, basically just standing around and getting lucky. When you really break this down, if you're down, and of course we are, we're assuming that Rose is not going. We're hoping that Rose is not going to play here. He was
Correct.
a non-contact participant on Tuesday's practice, non-contact, like it's football practice. But if he doesn't play, tell me what reliable ball handlers do you have, right? Cat's not bringing the ball up the court, and he might be your best damn passer out of those guys. I mean, you're talking about Wiggins and Okogie and Taj Gibson and Dario Saric. Bayless is your guy in that sense, and I'm with you. I think he's more reliable. You don't have to worry about the minutes right now if all of those guys are out. There really aren't that many options. He's averaging 61 passes per game in those 4 games where he's had additional work. He's averaging 12 potential assists, leading the team. No surprise. By the way, Cat is also benefiting from this double-digit potential assists per game. That's really, really solid for a center. But, yeah, I think Bayless is a perfectly reasonable play. 5K is getting up there, though, and he's facing Memphis. So that's the problem. Like, of all that I've just said, is this the spot where Bayless disappoints? It could be. If he gets 40 minutes, I think he'll be fine. But the ceiling here, you're really hoping for 30 fantasy points. So
Correct. And that's the hard part.
Exactly. If this were a different matchup, I'd be a lot more enthusiastic about it. But keep this in mind. If these guys remain out for another game or two, Bayless is going to still be in play. I got one for you that could also be very much playable. The Pelicans are playing their second of a back-to-back. We already talked about Drew. But there's a possibility that Elfrid Payton with that ankle sprain is also going to sit. And if that's the case, Frank Jackson played only 23 minutes, but he had 10, 7, 1, and 1. I can live with that. Frazier played, by the way, Tim Frazier played 18 minutes. He had 9 points, 10 assists, and 4 rebounds in 18 minutes, EMAC. That's ridiculous. That's ridiculous.
I'm glad I goosed both of those guys in my fantasy cruncher lineups near the end. I gave Frazier, I set him at 11 or 12%. I was running 120 teams tonight in the low dollar stuff mucking around, but I put him at 11%, gave him 16 points being Frazier, and I put in a rule. I said, don't play Frazier and don't play Frank Jackson on the same team, hoping one of them might flirt with 20 fantasy points. I think
that was the right that was the right call, because there was a good chance that Jackson played, 35 minutes and Frazier only played, 15 or, a couple 2-guard minutes. And I think that makes sense. But hey, if Peyton's out, I still am not playing both of them in the same lineup. I still think the rule that you set there makes more sense. Just because they had one game where both of them were decent, to me, it's not enough. And by the way, they didn't even they didn't even get all of the point guard minutes. Drew must have gotten some or somewhere because they only played a combined 41 minutes, which is a little bit more concerning too. But just keep an eye out. They're both, dirt cheap. And Tyler, just two more. Mike Conley facing Minnesota. He's looked really solid lately. I think he's actually fully healthy right now. And Tyler Johnson, assuming he plays, was starting and getting big minutes. So Tyler Johnson's not the worst play at 4,500 if you're not looking to play Trey Burke again. Do you think Trey Burke's ownership will fall off a cliff here after that last game, or do you think people will go right back to it? Because I think he might be a very solid tournament play now that everyone's bucking that trend that was last game.
My guess with 8 games on the docket that he will be around 30%. So I don't think, and that's half of what it was on Monday, but it's not going to be overly giant. So I think if you want to go there, I mean, hey, it's against Dallas. He could hit 6-7 shots, get a few assists, and all of a sudden he's got 35 fantasy points. It's possible.
If Elfrid Payton's out, I would expect his Burke's ownership to come down even further, just because there will be some more opportunities here, whether they're good or not. I think people will be able to look elsewhere and get away from that if they're not feeling good about it.
All right, we're going to move on to the 2-guard position here, but of course there is a robust point guard contingent sitting there in the mid-tiers. Laffy is going to be looking at that during the deep dive as he does his research for the premium article. If you have not yet signed up for Awesemo, what are you waiting for? Go to awesemo.com, click in the upper right. There is a join tab. Go choose out one of the monthly packages, any of them. Pick one with the Fantasy Cruncher add-on if you would like. Use the promo code EARLYBIRD, all one word, at checkout, and receive 50% off your first month. That is the best deal you're going to get. To come check us out, you're going to get 30 days, and this is the perfect time because we've got NBA, we've got NHL just back from the All-Star break, we've got the Super Bowl coming up, we've got content for that, we've got betting content for college basketball behind the scenes, and a whole lot more. Definitely come check that out at awesemo.com. Shooting guard, Laffy, Bradley Beal. Bradley Beal, second in the league in minutes. I was watching part of the telecast today, and they were talking that he was second in the league, and I don't know if that was for the full season or a specific time frame because that was when I changed the channel to the game. But Harden is number 1. They were saying something like Trevor Ariza was number 7. So we've got a lot of minutes here going to the starters in the ass-kicking that turned out to be a little closer towards the end, courtesy of the understudies. Beal played only 36 minutes. Satoransky got 31, Bryant 23, Ariza 28, and Green 25. That was your starting 5. Those guys will be running it back. I'm fine with Beal here. I don't have an issue with it. He has not been amazing, but he gets the minutes. He's solid. He is sort of a younger, a less well-known Victor Oladipo.
Okay. I by the way,
from a fantasy perspective, not playing style.
Pretty sure Bradley Beal is at least like 3 years older than Oladipo.
That's why I was trying to go with the lesser known. I knew I'd paint myself into a corner there. So
I might, maybe they're the same age. Hold on, let me see here. No, you're right. Oladipo's older by a year.
So much can change in 12 months, Laffy.
I know. Why do I feel like Beal has been in the league longer than Oladipo? Oh God, that's crazy. I was convinced that he'd been in the league. He is. He's been in the league a year longer than Oladipo, and he's a year younger than him. Isn't that interesting? Oh, whatever. So yeah, there's that. Oladipo's 26, and I think Bradley Beal's perfectly fine. I just keep coming back to it. I have trouble getting to him. Hell, even though Holiday didn't have a great game yesterday, that doesn't mean I'm getting away from him today. He played. Oh, you know what? That game, by the way, wasn't completely over. So Frazier is going to play around 20 and a half minutes, and Jackson 23. So 44 total minutes there. But yeah, Holiday is going to play almost 39 minutes here, and he plays a ton of minutes too. I don't know where he ranks now, but through the first 2.5 months of the season, Holiday was second in total or in minutes per game behind teammate Anthony Davis. So he gets a ton of minutes. and I expect that to continue. Right now, he's fourth in the league with 37 minutes per game. So I'm not worried about a back-to-back here. He took 18 shots yesterday. He still has massive usage. This is a spot where I'll be going back to with Drew Holiday, and I think you want to play him at the 2-guard spot, you can. And I'm also not totally opposed to looking at some Buddy Hield. I know his price is coming up, but look, sometimes you got to pay for guys that are in great spots where their ceilings are higher, and Hield is phenomenal here. He's 65 on FanDuel, though. I think at that price on FanDuel, he's going to be one of the better plays on the slate, actually. And I'll throw Bogdan Bogdanovic into the mix as well. I mean, this game just has so much that it's going to be harder for me to get to Beal. It's going to be really difficult to get the guys like Levine or Richardson or any of them. I do think from a tournament standpoint, one guy that does look nice to me, gets a nice pace-up draw against a team that's playing their second leg of a back-to-back. Will Barton here I like quite a bit, Emac, because he's $6,800 on DraftKings. And after, being kind of eased back into the rotation, even though he was starting, he played 36 minutes in that come-from-behind win where they were down by 20 and beat Memphis by 3. Real low-scoring game. 36 minutes last time out. Jamal Murray's already ruled out. Monty Morris, Malik Beasley, those aren't the guys we're really considering here. And even Gary Harris in that game was a colossal disappointment. So facing this Pelicans team, you got a great pace-up spot. Barton starting at the point. I think he could go overlooked, and 6,800 really isn't that bad on DraftKings. He's $400 less expensive than Hield, and he's the same price, 6,500 as Buddy Hield on FanDuel, but he's small forward eligible. So if you wanted to play both, you could do that as well.
Yeah, and I have no issue with that. And I think anybody that does game log watching is probably going to forget that now there are, as you just mentioned, the vacated minutes from Jamal Murray, and he's been working his way back from injury. There was a personal day in there, and then there was an illness that had gone through the Denver Nuggets locker room. So he and Gary Harris, while they haven't said they're uncapped for minutes, it looks like Barton is definitely ahead from a health perspective because Harris came back, I think, a game or two sooner, but then he injured himself. So I like that one with Barton. I definitely like Bogdanovic at 5,500 here on DraftKings. That's really all there is that jumps out at first blush here, but we've given you several anchor points here. So moving on here to small forward, a few of the same names that we're getting. Justice Winslow, I don't mind playing him at small forward. He is definitely the starting point guard at this point for the Miami Heat. He is going against Chicago, $6,100 price tag. That's reasonable. It's not really at a discount, but he is going to have minutes, opportunity, and responsibility for keeping that offense moving. Andrew Wiggins, did he suddenly decide he's going to rebound these days, Lofty?
I'm not buying it yet.
He had a bit of a dud there against Utah. 35 points, just 3 rebounds. But coming into that, he had 11, 8, 9, 6, 5, 4, 7, 6, 10. That's higher than his career rate. I still can't trust him, but at 6,500, I don't mind him. And he's one of the guys that's usually on my short list of guys that make the list and are immediately off.
The issue I have with him is twofold. One, if Andrew Wiggins, if I'm playing him hoping that the peripherals can be elevated, I want him in a game that's going to see, a more elevated pace. And you could argue back with, well, he had 11 rebounds against Utah. That he did. But I still think that was more of an enigma than anything else. I worry about this spot against Memphis. I get that they're not a good team. But if you look at the games they're losing, they're still not allowing a lot of scoring, right? Like Denver scored 95. Indy 103, Sacramento under 100 points. Like they're holding a lot of teams under 100, at least recently. They're not the worst defense. And the times that they are allowing a lot of points, it's when the bench players just come in to mop it up after they've fallen out of contention because they can't make a shot. Here's the second part, though. Somebody that I really liked the other day because of the ownership was projected to be so low and everyone loved Burke was Tim Hardaway Jr. You get him at a $500 discount, pretty similar players, pretty almost identical usage. And Tim Hardaway doesn't have a Karl Anthony Towns on his team. So I think Hardaway actually stands out as a very interesting play with small forward eligibility. And then you can also get into some of the value plays. The great thing about having the multi-position eligibility is, the guys that we didn't talk about at shooting guard as cheap guys, we can talk about here. There are some cheap spots to go. Adam I had said that I thought Justin Holiday's minutes would come down with Anderson back. And he had mentioned that he thought they would stay up. Adam was right. He played 40 minutes. Now, how much of that had to do with Green not playing at all and moving guys up? That's possible too. Like if Green comes back, I don't think Holiday plays 40, but he's still cheap enough, right? He's what, $4,300 on DraftKings. He plays another 38, 40 minutes. He's decent enough value. God, look, he's been bad. I mean, don't get me wrong, he's been bad, but a significant pace-up spot against Minnesota. I'm just kind of throwing out some cheaper guys here. If you're looking for dart throws, if you're looking for punts, does Waiters play 28, 29 minutes against a horrible Chicago team? Maybe he plays 8 minutes. You really don't know. And I couldn't tell you. I said the same thing with Mario Hezonja the other day. I wrote him up in the deep dive and basically said, look, you could get a decent game from him, or he might not play. He played 26 minutes, had 20 fantasy points at basically minimum salary. Not what you're looking for, nothing great, but he did play a bunch of minutes. These guys are so difficult to predict. And I feel like Wiggins is kind of the same in that when you talk about that $6,500 price point, does he keep putting up these monster numbers? As much as I want to say, yeah, I think maybe he does. EMAC, I'm having a very tough time with that. I just don't think I can get there.
And that definitely makes a lot of sense, Lafayette. I was trying to find Popcorn Machine isn't updated, so I was going to another.
It's annoying. It hasn't updated since the 26th. I know.
Yeah, and this site. Oh, there we go. I wanted to see who closed out for Memphis here, because they had. Of course, now that I'm on a site I'm not used to reading, it's going to be fun.
To see if Anderson closed out with.
Well, I know he did, because he melted down and basically didn't get shots off, got a shot blocked and something else. It was a horrible.
Anderson did or Holiday did?
Anderson did.
Oh,
it was a horrible. I was looking at it this morning on Deadspin. If you guys,
I couldn't believe they lost that game, man. I didn't watch it. I mean, I read no interest in it, honestly. But when I saw that they blew a 20 plus or whatever point lead, it was shocking. Now you're shedding a little bit of light on it.
Yeah, so the guys closing out on it was Marc Gasol, Justin Holiday, Conley, Kyle Anderson, and then it looked like they were moving in groups of players, Noah, Mack, and Bruno Caboclo, yes, was on the court.
Was Gasol not out there?
Pardon?
Was Gasol not out there?
No, Gasol was there. So it was Gasol, Holiday, Conley, which we would expect. Kyle Anderson, and then they rotated three guys through that fits.
Got it.
Based on if they were shooting foul shots or not, or trying to do an inbounds play, whatever it was, because that was there. But that it was just kind of interesting on that one. That Kyle Anderson was in. So he played. Let's see, how do I read this? Yeah, he played 29 minutes. So
yep.
Still a pretty good amount and such. So he had a brain cramp. He was averaging before he got injured, I don't know, it was something like 9 points, 6 assists, or 6 rebounds, 4 steals, combined, as you like to say, stocks just over 2. We've seen him have good games when he puts it all together. It happens about once a month, but I'm just a little nervous that that long layoff and then him choking, because he's been a veteran and we've trained under Greg Popovich,
mm-hmm.
right? So you would like to think at late game situations he'd be well prepared.
Sure,
just absolute deer in headlights, and the fact that it happened 2 or 3 times in that short span where he shit the bed, and it was.
But I think you're right in saying that, like, if you're gonna roll the dice on Anderson or on Holiday, where Anderson's 45 and Holiday's 43, you're still probably better off just going with Anderson, unless JB Bickerstaff, is like, hey, you screwed us. But that seems silly. They're not trying to win anyway. So I think you're right. Anderson really is now talking strictly shooting guard because he's actually point guard, or strictly small forward. The other guys had shooting guard eligibility. Anderson definitely makes sense here, especially if we get him back up to like 33 minutes. Remember, his price had crept up quite a bit before that injury, and it started getting pretty restrictive. I was not about paying mid 5K for him. That was tough. And even if you don't want to do that, Darius Miller, depending on the injury situation, he played 40 minutes last night. So if we have Randall out and we know Mirotic will be out, if these guys remain out and Davis out as well, then Miller's going to play another like 38, 40 minutes. And you guys know nobody dislikes playing somebody like Darius Miller more than I do. But you know what? When you're sub 4K, sometimes you just have to roll the dice there. And I actually do expect this game to be close, believe it or not. I don't think Vegas will have it there. But hey, as you point out, the Pelicans just went into Houston and beat them by 5 on the road. Like, this stuff happens, right? So it's not like, oh, they're going to get crushed on a back-to-back. Yeah, I'm not going to play that card. So I think Miller will probably get 40 minutes here. And aside from that, if you're looking for value, because I don't know about you, Emac, but if I'm paying up, I mean, Doncic is here. How much of him I'll get is yet to be seen. I don't think I'll have a ton. There is Will Barton, who I like. Bogdanovich is pretty cheap. Otto Porter against Indy's fine. So you have those guys. And Tim Hardaway here. But there really aren't that – there's nobody expensive that I have any interest in targeting at small forward. I'd rather go cheap and even look at, potentially a Jaylen Brown who got 31 minutes last game. There's a lot of value here where I don't think you need to pay up for Doncic unless you want to, but I don't think you need to get that high. I'd rather go elsewhere.
Yeah, and I just wanted to get a count here. It looks like there's 8. Well, there's still some games going on. It looks like 8 teams right now out of the – what are we at now? 30 in the league. 8 teams have winning road records. So for these teams to come in and win on the road, right. Our examples were, tonight we got the depleted New Orleans Pelicans. We had last night we had Atlanta, and then I keep throwing out the Washington Wizards one, losing to or beating Oklahoma City. Weird stuff happens on the game to game, but as you can see, the home court advantage is a very, very, very real thing here in the NBA, especially when you look at less than a third of the league has a winning record on the road.
Sure.
All right.
Oh, and by the way, we all make mistakes. I made one now. I thought Luka Doncic was playing a different team. Let me retract that statement. Luka Doncic against the New York Knicks. I'm on board with that. I had him against, I don't know why, I had him against a tougher team in my head. He's so good despite being so young, and the Knicks are so dreadfully bad that he's still a good play. I messed that one up. Please forgive me.
All right, hitting power forward here as we wind on down through the positions. We have John Collins at 7,900 on DraftKings going against Sacramento. We haven't seen a really big game from him recently, but he is still averaging close to a 20 and 10. So that is a solid option. Lauri Markkanen at a bit of a discount. He's on a back-to-back 6,900 going against Miami. Not the best of matchups, but he is definitely one of the offensive focal points there for the Bulls. And then a couple of Wizards here. No, not magicians, but actual Washington Wizards. You've got Trevor Ariza and Otto Porter at 6,000 and 5,700 respectively on the back-to-back, but they're going against Indiana here. We've talked about consolidated minutes there with the Wizards. Yikes, this position drops off rather rapidly. We could get a gift if Julius Randle is back, but outside of that, there's not a ton at the power forward spot.
No, and one thing that I've found pretty strange is that we talk about the dynamic pricing on DraftKings. The price points have come up pretty significantly on some of these players. You're talking like $600-$700. Some of them, almost $1,000 overnight, like Trae Young. John Collins, however, has gone the opposite direction. John Collins went from 82 to 79, despite having an equally favorable matchup. He's fallen off a little bit recently. He hasn't been awful, of course, but the rebounding's come down a bit. The minutes are a little bit more erratic, which is concerning, but there's no doubt that you're still looking at Collins at 7,900 in tournaments, on FanDuel at 8K flat. Zero issues with that. Like you said, if Randall plays, I just see him being, I don't want to say criminally underpriced, but Randall with Mirotic and Davis off the floor. I mean, do we even care about them? Like, let me ask you this, Eli, because this was a lot of times I will flat out say matchups don't matter to me, but it has to be, the right spot at the right price. Randall is 78. If he was facing Memphis without Mirotic and Davis, and I actually think this happened earlier this season, I wouldn't care at all, because the opportunity is immense, and that he's going to see so much offensive responsibility that I don't really think it matters. So Denver's not the greatest matchup, but it's not terrible. And with Davis and Nico off the floor, he's going to get a ton of work.
Yeah, and if he is healthy, I would assume that he is going to play at least 30 minutes. And he's not going to be expending any energy on defense. This will be the third time that Denver and the Pellies have played. They last played in the middle of November. He got 47 fantasy points in 27 minutes. They played in Denver at the end of October, 2 days before Halloween. In 26 minutes, he got 44 fantasy points. So I'm just saying, if I think he's going to get 30 and he's playing, I'm doing cartwheels for him at that price.
Yeah, and I think you could see significantly more than that. If
definite upside, but
like, put it this way, with Randall, let's not forget, is it a lower body injury? Yes, it's a lower body injury, but he's only missed like 1 or 2 games. I mean, he played on the 23rd of January. This hasn't been an extended hiatus. He played on the 23rd and he played 24 minutes. 2 games before that, he played 37. And now you've got, 2 of your key forwards out, and a center, if you want to call Davis a center. Randall has played 291 minutes with both of these guys off the floor this year, 32% usage rate. We like that. 16.5% rebounding, almost a 20% assist rate too. That should not go overlooked. And 1 1/3 fantasy points per minute. Now, if you get 36 minutes there, you're talking about upwards of 50 plus fantasy points, and we'd be very happy with that.
Yeah, last guy we're going to talk about here, because again, there's splitting hairs looking at all.
That's what the deep dive is for.
Exactly. But I do want to point out Marvin Bagley.
I knew it. If you didn't, I was gonna.
Because the minutes have kind of been all over the place, but he's in low 5,000s. Great matchup here against Atlanta. He generally should see. I would project him for probably about 24 minutes in this game. And that is good. He's been much better with his fouling. He just has 7 fouls over the last 4 games. Yeah, 5 games ago he had 5 in that one, and he fouled out 2 games before that. But I like to see him somewhat playing under control. And really, is he going to be that grabby against Alex Len, Dwayne Dedman, maybe John Collins, maybe. But right. I think if he can keep his hands to himself, that's a phenomenal play right now.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm on board. The minutes, as you said, they've kind of been they've been concerning all season long. So I really don't know what we're going to get from Bagley here, but just the upside that he brings to the table is enough to put him on the board, right? Like if Bagley does play 28 minutes, he's going to have you'd be hard pressed to find ways to argue against him being a very solid play here. But you know what, you have guys like Jason Tatum as well. He's also been enigmatic this year. You really don't know what you're going to get from Tatum, and even in spots with Kyrie and a bunch of guys out, I've had trouble really getting to him heavily. Like Al Horford would actually be my preferred guy there, power forward eligible. He's looked great lately.
Especially if Kyrie's out, because he gets such more.
So. I'm sorry. I'm assuming Kyrie is out. Sorry.
Yeah, for sure.
I should. Well, I think he's. We'll talk as if he's out because he's doubtful right now, and we
very fair.
8 hours doing this. So Horford would also be in play, and hey, Markkanen's rebounding's been off the charts lately, man. He's played really well. He's not overpriced. Do I love the spot against Miami? No, but they're actually not one of the slower paced teams this year. They're a decent defensive team, but if Markkanen goes out there, plays significant run, 31 minutes yesterday, I think he could get more than that today. He had 18 and 19 against the Nets yesterday. Emax, pretty solid.
Yeah, you just can't argue with it. Can't argue with it.
No,
Finishing off on centers, here's where some of our more expensive players were hiding out. We've got Nikola Jokic.
I like that.
Yeah, 10,900. Karl Anthony Towns, 10,600. They're in the five-figure club. If you were choosing between the two of them, I think we would lean somewhat towards Jokic. I did look at Karl Anthony Towns' last few games against Marc Gasol and vice versa. Towns has been kind of, Marc Gasol's actually had some good games going against
Towns is a garbage defender.
Exactly. So if you're going to take the discount and play this one, I would probably lean towards Gasol. Now I'm gonna finish this little thought out here, and then I'll let you run through the rest of the centers. Over on draft, where I like to play, and I've already set up my queue and my draft list. There are 11 viable centers. I don't even think it's necessary to burn a pick on Jokic. If you get a top 3 pick and he's there, fine. I wouldn't tell you not to. But the 8-mans, you literally can wait until your last pick, and you're going to get somebody solid. But the reason I wanted to look at some of these Western Conference matchups, because we've got Gobert going against Nurkic, vice versa, that hasn't been good for either one of them. Yeah, Nurkic had a good one last time, and Gobert had one in the last 4. But I don't want to be burning picks on those guys. I don't want to burn a pick on Cat, so I'll wait till 5, 6, 7 and get Gasol or somebody else, a Whiteside going against Chicago or something like that. And make sure you get the forwards. The forwards are incredibly thin today. So I would rather use my first pick on a forward personally. But I know you don't play that format a ton, Laffy, but that one I like, and I like to throw a few nuggets out there to help people survive because I love it. One player on one team. That's it. No overlap. So if you want somebody, you grab them. They're yours. If you don't get them,
that's pretty interesting.
They're only on one other team. So
I did it with a bunch of buddies for football season, close friends of mine on my hockey team. We would do a draft league each year, money leagues each week, and it's a lot of fun. You don't really have to keep track of it, although we would Venmo each other instead of paying the rake, because why would you want to do that? But yeah, it's a fun format. It is. I'll tell you what, though, man. I love Nikola Jokic here. I mean, I just absolutely love it. If Randall's out, even if he's in, but if Randall's out, Jokic is going to eat Jahlil Okafor alive. Jokic. I don't know if I said Randall. Jokic is going to eat Okafor alive. And I've got to tell you, I wouldn't be surprised to see this hurt Okafor's playing time. It might not, just because Alvin Gentry will be limited in his options, which is very much a possibility. Okafor played 37 minutes last night, had a great game. Hopefully everybody played him. It was a really solid spot. And the same goes for Fareed, who had a nice game as well, had almost 40 fantasy points for the Houston Rockets. I'm so happy for him, by the way, but that's for another time. I love the manimal. But Jokic, just what a smash spot this is for a guy that has, as high as upside as anybody out there, especially, let alone anyone at his position. I mean, the New Orleans Pelicans have been ravaged by bigs quite often this season, and he is a special player that's going to contribute in every category, leads his team in literally usage rate, assist rate, rebounding rate. You never see that. I mean, it's just he's that good. I prefer him over Towns, actually by a pretty wide margin. And you know what? I'll tell you the truth there. This is because of matchup, because both of them have the upside. Both of them are pretty much the same price. So why not play the guy that's facing a team that plays at a significantly faster pace and is worse defensively? To me, it just makes sense.
Absolutely. All right. That is going to do it there for us. Of course, then we've got content.
I know we got to go. Let me just Hassan Whiteside, if you're looking for tournament plays, because I didn't give out any cheap plays here, Emac. I don't want to do listeners dirty. Or Bam Adebayo, don't play him in the same lineup, but there's definitely tournament appeal against Chicago. I don't know how many minutes Robin Lopez is going to play, but he has been starting. He played 26 minutes, and then he played only 20 minutes yesterday, so that is a total toss-up. But I think you pointed it out. You probably want to pay here. Right now, there is not a lot of value unless you're going to like a Willie Hernan-Gomez or a Mason Plumlee, and that starts to get pretty ugly pretty fast.
Yeah, absolutely. And one last thing to throw out. This will be the 4th time that Utah and Portland is facing each other this season. They're wrapping up their season matchups, so they are very familiar with each other. Just file that one away. Reminder, we do have the DFS strategy show that will be kicking off around 9:15, 9:20, depending on if Adam shipped my modems equipment is working. That'll be with Josh and Adam.
I heard he made an appearance by phone the other day.
Yes, it was. I felt like he was embedded with the troops when we were doing that show. So we've got a new platform I'm using with him. My sound was a little off on the last one, but we should be good going forward. But 9:15, you got Josh and Adam. It's a 7:30 lock, so I think we'll probably push everything back by a half hour for the normal starting time, depending on if Adam and Lofty decide they want a few extra minutes for news, or if they want to take a leisurely stroll at the normal start time. But that's why you need to sign up for the Awesemo YouTube account. Click that notification button and you'll know when we go live.
It'll be 4:45, by the way. 8 or more games, 4:45.
But it's a 7:30 start, not a 7.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm watching the Sixers game over here. Look,
I know. That's why I'm trying to wrap up for you.
you're my guy. You're my man. So if it's 8 games, then we'll start at. So we'd start at 5. So 5:15. 5:15. Yeah.
Yep. There we are. But check all that
Should have
out.
kept my mouth shut.
Yep. Check all that out, and you got Fast Eddie Fair taking you down the home stretch up to lock. With that, gamers, good luck.